Hello and welcome to the UKGameshows.com Bothers Bar poll of 2014 results. Loads of people have voted for the best and worst game shows of the year, and I'm here with Nick Gates, Lewis Murphy, and Daniel Peake to discuss the results. We should say, in the Pointless Series 1 stylee, that we have no knowledge of the answers. The man who knows all is Nick Gates. Good evening,
Yes.
Nick.
Hey, and all the answers are in these fantastic envelopes I'm holding here, which I've done about half an hour ago. So we look forward to opening those up and being an exciting surprise for you, viewer, and these people, my fellow commentators, as well.
And was Sunderland South the first to declare for Pointless this year?
It was, yes, it was.
As is traditional.
It is traditional.
I'm here also with Lewis Murphy of the 50/50 Show podcast. Good evening.
Hello, how are you doing?
Fine, thank you. And now that I've got my microphone problem sorted, and Daniel Peake, various game shoe game show ne'er-do-well.
Oh, yes. Good evening, how are you doing?
Fine now. We're getting into it. So it's going to be an interactive event. I hope you're going to all join in with us. There'll be various bits of business along the way. So let's crack on then by saying that there is a viewer poll that you can join in with, which has got a few questions about you, about what you think of game shows, where you are, that sort of thing. An introductory little poll just to get your feedback. We've already got 30 viewers, so thank you for tuning in. Sorry to keep you waiting. If we know there was 30 of you, we might have gone on with it a bit more. So if you can go to that Google poll and fill it out if you would like to, then we will, after this first set of results, we will take a look and give you some feedback on the answers. So we'll leave that up there for a little while so you can type in all the numbers and letters.
I'm propagating it on Twitter as well, so you're following me at Bothers Bar. It should be on the timeline right now.
Okay, so that should save you from...
So it should save you from type it all in. Well, I've got it right, which would be quite funny if I got it wrong, wouldn't it?
Being it all in, yeah. So it's 1 capital B, small a, R, capital R, 9, small x, small q. And that should be that. Okay. So we shall go on to our first category, which I imagine we'd normally do the worst shows of the year first, don't we? I think.
We can do all showing this year first. Yeah, why not? Get the worst ones out of the way.
I think so, because I think the Fame one is the more prestigious one, so we had that towards the end.
Okay.
So away you go, Nick.
Okay, so this is actually the 10th running of the poll, and the illustrious winners of this in previous years include Celebrity Love Island, The Mint, For the Rest of Your Life, The Kids Are Alright, The Colour of Money, 101 Ways to Leave a Game Show, Red or Black, The Bank Job, and Take On the Twisters. But what has won your ire this year? Let's find out. This envelope's all very, very exciting.
Yes.
Okay, and the top 10. There wasn't any tie for 10th, like that. What we will do, we'll go through the bottom half of this list quite quick, and we'll give individual shows at the top half a bit more time. So from 10 to 6, in 10th place, joint 9th is The Taste and Win It, Cook It. In 8th place is Celebrity Squares. In 7th place, Ejector Seat. And in 6th place, The 21st Question.
Wow.
So, what do you think of those?
To put it politely, I'm slightly surprised by the 21st Question only being 6th. I wasn't a fan of that show, if only because of the pacing. I thought the show itself was okay. It could have been done in half the time that it was there.
Yeah, I mean, I worked on that show as a verifier for a little bit, and it did sound a bit like Number Wang, actually, when you first read the rules, and But I think definitely the second week of recordings, you could tell that everyone had kind of got into their stride a bit, and they were able to sort of ping off each other and laugh about certain situations a lot more. And therefore, I think that it might have legs. I do find it frustrating that there are an awful lot of quizzes that are slowing down, and there must be a gap in the market for a really fast quiz, as of the old styley 15-1 kind of thing.
I think the problem there is the problem that I've said countless times before, which is nobody wants a half-hour show anymore, and so people are stretching half-hour ideas to 45 minutes or an hour, and that means you just got to pad things out and go slowly. That's where I think it comes from personally.
Well, yes, I think that's true, but then again, I think some channels are cottoning onto it a little bit. I think Two Tribes, that you could say that's quite fast-paced on the whole. It's got little bits of chat in between, but it's relatively fast, and that's half an hour. And Beat the Brains, when that comes around, I believe that's going to be half an hour. So, there are certain slots, but it does tend to be sort of BBC Two at 6:30.
Yeah.
Well, the National Lottery show at the moment, the Win Your Wish List, that's quite fast-paced when you get to the quiz rounds. The quiz rounds are fairly well spaced. I don't think that lacks pace at all. So I think they're around. They're just not as prevalent as they used to be.
Which is actually quite well as well. Sorry. Go on.
I was just going to say National Lottery shows. I mean, they have more time filled in their hour because they've got obviously the draws that they've got to deal with. So, I mean, they're slightly more fast-paced than equivalent shows of the same length. But I'm just being stupid now. I think probably. Anyway, sorry, you were going to say, Nick?
No, I was going to say, Win Your Wish List it's getting quite good viewers as well. It's getting over 5 million, which is more. It was doing that before. What's on the site started at the moment? The Voice. It's doing that before The Voice started as well. So, or at least high fours. So there is evidently some sort of hunger for that sort of thing.
Well, let's get on to that end later on. So
Yeah.
That was the top six.
So that was 10 to 6.
The bottom 5 of the top 10. So let's go on to number 5.
Number 5, The Jump.
Ah.
I would be surprised at its placement here, but frankly, there was so much that wasn't very good this year. I can't possibly be surprised by the Jump's placement at number 5.
I thought it was. I quite liked it. Well, I don't liked it, but I quite enjoyed it. It was quite funny. But even though it was a bit crap, it was crap in quite a funny way. So I don't. It's certainly not the best thing I've seen, but it's certainly. Well, there are certainly shows more entertaining that have done worse than it, frankly.
So it sounds like it was underwhelming. Would that be a fair way to summarise? It sounds like a really exciting thing. They're going to get these celebrities to do these things, but actually all they do is injure themselves.
Yep.
Yes, well, it's stuck in a dichotomy there, isn't it? It can't make the jump any more dangerous, because then you'll basically be left with Jeanette Cranky and the host, and then that'll be after show 3.
Yeah.
But equally, I think it's relatively fair to say that the spectacle of the jump itself didn't really come across, for whatever reason, on the actual show. In its defence, I have to say, I rather quite liked the production values on it. They went to quite an extent on things like, say, when they were doing speed skating, getting the logo frozen into the bottom of the ice of the rink. And I thought the costumes were really fabulous as well. Fabulous with a capital F. They did try hard on it. It's coming. It's obviously coming back. It must have done okay. It got enough press for good reasons or bad.
It's getting about 2 million, which is not bad, frankly. Not for Channel 4, but certainly at the start, while drift off towards the end. And of course, there is literally a chance that someone might die on live television. So that is quite exciting. Okay. So it's joint third place for the next two, and it's a 12-yard special. It's gift wrapped and Revenge of the Egghead.
Oh. Now, in my mind, they're very different.
They got the same amount of votes.
I don't know what there is to say about these. I mean, Revenge. I don't think Revenge of the Egghead was one of the worst shows. I think it comes into that underwhelming category again. I think I don't know if a lot of the people voting sort of missed Eggheads in that slot, and there's in CJ being a bit too smug about things, and I wouldn't say it was a horrible show, but at the same time, I wouldn't say it was a great show either. But I can't see that being at number 3. There's plenty of shows I would probably have put there above Revenge of the Egghead. Gift wraps. You'll have to remind me which one that was. That was the one with Eamon and Ruth, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was
Yes.
the boring one with Eamon and Ruth. That's it, really.
Yeah. Okay then. Nothing much else to say about that other than it's the one with Eamon and Ruth. I forgot about it until now.
There were some nice mechanics in Gift Wrapped. I mean, I quite liked the little sort of safe combination cracking mini game that they had, but it did somewhat reek of the first 40 minutes of the game. Seemed to be almost inconsequential to the final round, where you're giving points away for every single answer, and then everything was riding on a crucial final question, which is the trap that Win Your Wish List, if we come to it later, didn't fall into, and I think that was a refreshing change. I think Gift Wrapped maybe went down too many well-worn tropes of recent shows, and it somewhat suffered for it.
I think for me, I liked some of the question mechanics. I liked the round where there were 9 things and they had to, we're going to give you these superheroes and you have to tell us the villain, or here's the villain who's the Superman. The 9 things and you have to give us the other half of the pair. I always like that mechanic. I just didn't really like Eamon and Ruth. I just thought they didn't quite add anything to the show. I know they're a husband and wife, and that is a nice idea. I just didn't think it quite worked for the show, and I just felt it was quite atmosphereless for the entire show. Revenge of the Egghead, the other hand, I thought that had one heck of an atmosphere that I didn't like because of CJ. I thought he just played the smug card a bit too hard. I've played darts against him. Fun fact, I lost. But then that's quite common when I play darts. But I just didn't like the tone of that show. It was like sort of Egghead is a positive, this was kind of a negative. I didn't like it.
Certainly in your comments that the viewers gave us when they made the poll, Revenge of the Egghead, it was CJ's acting that came up a lot in the comments, and the tone, and Gift Wrap was boring. That was basically what everyone was saying. So that's joint to third. In second, there's quite a gap between third and second, by the way. It's quite close between first and second, but there's a bit of a drop between second and third. In second is Reflex.
Oh,
Really?
I had that as number 1 in my head.
I didn't think Reflex was that bad. I think there's plenty of other shows here that you could have put above Reflex in a part of the worst shows. I will begrudgingly admit that I quite enjoyed Reflex when I got around to watching it, as long as I had the sound turned off, because Ken Bruce's god-awful commentary was god-awful.
It was a very, very pretty show. So incredibly pretty. But it's a little bit like a glamour model. It was all style but no substance. There was nothing to the show, and I think the viewers obviously saw it. And when the joke came up, that looks like a banana. That is a banana. There was a joke about a banana in the first episode, and that was the point that I did not like it.
Yeah, I think when it was first mentioned to me about 2.5 years before it came to air, because it's a very long birth, it was meant to be something like, let's say it's a sprinting race with 2 people, but it's done in slow motion, and then there's a sort of a commentary over the top where they sort of go, A's in the lead and B's in the lead. Oh no, A's in the lead now, and so it's meant to be funny and exciting, and it's spectacular. You see these things in slow motion. But I think for a lot of these games, what actually happened is, if you throw paint at a screen, then if you're a little bit in the lead, when the paint comes out of your can, then it's going to be even more in the lead in the next shot, and then even more in the lead in the next shot, because physics being what it is, it doesn't sort of speed up and slow down in the way you think it might. So they had to kind of disguise that in the edit by flicking between close-ups and wide shots and everything in between, and I found that quite annoying, that I just couldn't watch it all at once as a thing. that they kept playing around with it to try and disguise the fact that it was quite obvious from the start who was going to win most of the time. Some games that didn't fall into the case, but I think for an awful lot of them it did. And despite all the effort that went into the amazing effects of things disappearing and appearing and everything like that, which was amazing. And then they also had the slightly weird way that they sort of edited out Shane Ritchie in a way that they haven't done on Win Your Wish List. He's a very central part of that show, and that felt slightly weird in that I think he's funnier than Ken Bruce's commentary was. So
it was. I saw this live, and when I saw it, I thought, okay, if it's a half-hour show, then maybe, but there's no way you have enough content here for longer than half an hour, really. And Shane Ritchie was quite clearly one of the best things about it. I've always said that Shane Ritchie's a pretty damn good host for these sorts of things. Doesn't get enough credit for it. So it was very strange to watch it live and watch the show and discover he's been edged out on most of it. I think, what's all that about? That's a bit strange. I don't know what they're trying to do, something with a tone or anything, but he was funny on the stage, and you replaced him with someone being not funny but trying to be funny in the commentary. So I don't get that.
I think it's harsh that it's the second worst show, I have to say, because I'd rather they'd made shows like that are memorable and different than coming up with Q&A shows like the two below it.
It's an interesting failure, although it is a failure. So we like it. Well, I like it. I don't really like it, but it's certainly, I'm glad it exists. You want to watch it.
Just a quick reminder: we're going to close the first poll in a minute. So if you want to, if you just joined us recently, we're having a quick poll just to ask a few questions about who you are, where you're watching from, and a few questions about game shows from the year gone. So if you want to get your final results in before we announce the results of this one, then there is the link that you'll need: bit.ly/1 capital B small a capital R 9XQ.
So, any guesses as to what the top worst show of the year is?
My guess is quite obviously, and in fact, it can't be anything else. It has to be the Royal Welsh Show pub quiz. Everybody saw that, and it was absolutely rubbish, wasn't it? No. My serious guess is it's going to be Tumble. We all know it's going to be Tumble. That's probably the only horrible show left.
I guess.
Any other guesses?
I'm worried it might be The Link. I hope it's not The Link.
Yes, that's an interesting one, isn't it? I think it probably is Tumble.
Well, I can tell you that The Link actually came in 14th place.
Okay.
And the worst show of last year was, according to you, the viewers, Tumble.
Hey.
And I'm not entirely sure that's fair, to be honest. I think it was actually quite a nicely made show. It's quite boring, derivative, but the worst show of last year? Really?
I'd agree. It's no Strictly, but
it tried to be. I think again, it's people react to it not being what they're used to. The same way that Revenge of the Egghead got a lot of negative reaction for not being Eggheads. I think Tumble's got a lot of negative reaction for not being Strictly, but very obviously trying to be the Strictly formula. When it just isn't, and it's a lot more boring, and frankly, the people doing the gymnastics, at least until like the very end, just weren't as good as the medium stages of, say, Strictly, because it's a slightly easier. I'm not going to say it's easy to dance at a professional level, but I'm going to say it's slightly easier to pass off something that looks impressive at dance than it is to pass off something that looks impressive in gymnastics.
I thought the actual things that they did were damn impressive. The first show, when they're what seemed like 14 foot high up in the air, you think, oh, blimey, if they did fall, then it could be pretty nasty, even if there is a crash mat. It's what they're doing is something that I wouldn't particularly want to do myself, and so from that point of view, it was a better watch than Strictly. But the problem with these things is that a lot of reality shows is all about chemistry between the hosts, between the judges, between the participants, and even from the viewers as well, watching. There's sort of an implied chemistry there. And I didn't think that they got the chemistry right at all. I mean, Alex Jones is a very professional person, but I'm not sure that the chemistry between her and everyone else kind of worked. I don't really understand why they had the trainers who stood next to the participants in the studio, because they were wearing extremely badly fitting shell suits, and they seem to sort of come from a different world altogether. It would be almost like having your pair of Strictly dancers and then like a behind-the-scenes choreographer just stood behind them for some random reason in their work clothes. It didn't kind of work for me. The judges seemed a bit random in their choice, and they were spaced a bit too far apart, so they couldn't really have a lot of fun mucking around between each other. I think that's a big trap that a lot of directors fall into, actually, that because they have the space for a big set, they think, oh, we fill this huge space, and sometimes the best sets are ones that cramp people really close together. Or things like
Strictly set is particularly small as well.
Yeah, I think it may be an iteration too far.
I disagree with Tumble as number one. I still think out of the two of them it should be Reflex. I'm going to suggest that Tumble might become number one because it was a higher profile flop, if that would make any sense. It was a bigger disappointment than Reflex. But what's really interesting is about both number one and number two, Tumble and Reflex, the production values on both of them were pretty high. Really high as well, I mean, obviously they're both Saturday night prime time, so they had decent money behind them, and yet good production values doesn't mean a good show.
Yeah. I'd like to go through some of the comments on Twitter for the Hall of Shame, if you don't mind.
Yep.
Because I think going through our viewers' opinions would be a nice addition. Sam Hodkin going through the 6 through 10 votes. He said, Celebrity Squares only 8th in the Hall of Shame. I'm shocked Squares is not an hour-long show. Alex Buzzerblog says, I'm apparently going to remain the sole fan of Ejector Seat, which really was one of the better ITV quizzes in a while overall. I'm going to say I think you're going to... I think that's not going to change once we come to the Hall of Fame. I think you're not the only one there. Let's have a look. Luke has said, I think the problem with Revenge of the Egghead was lack of fun as much as anything else. It needed a lighter touch. This also blights the Eggheads, but yes, I think that's got something a lot to do with, again, CJ's attitude that he was putting on during that one. And lastly, I've got David Cooper, who says Reflex was the deadly combination of lots of hype, lots of viewers, and a bit rubbish. Plenty of worse shows, but nobody watched. And yes, obviously, with these top two, you both said, oh no, you said, Dan, they were high-profile Saturday night shows, and obviously, if more people watch something that's not done very well, that's had a low opinion, then obviously more people are going to vote for it. So,
yep.
I think at Luke Watches makes Luke Watches makes a good point that he fears Tumble's getting a rap because it's a non-favoured part of a genre for voters, not necessarily because it's bad per se. I do agree with that. I think a little bit. I think certainly, but most people who vote in this sort of poll are quite gamey people, and reality tends to be distanced a little bit. But I don't think it wasn't a great show. It wasn't a great success, obviously. But certainly people who vote in this poll don't tend to vote for that sort of thing. So yeah, I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I guess we can move on a little bit. We'll go through to the results of our first poll, just to I can't work out how to do any graphics for this, but I'll just chat through them quickly. We had what was your involvement in game shows? It seems about 80% of your viewers. About 15% are former contestants, and we've got a couple of people who work in the industry. Age range split pretty much 50-50 between 18 to 30 and 31 to 45. No one is a game show fan who's over 45, so that makes me think of. Hopefully, it's not going to be a Logan's Run kind of situation when in 4 years' time I have to kill myself. 90% of people listening to us are male, and two females. Hello to you. Thank you for calling.
Absolutely.
Was this year better or worse for game shows? I think about 60% said worse, 30% said about the same, and about 10% said better. From where do you watch UK game shows? I think 90% of people said UK, and we have a couple of people from USA and a couple from Europe. Mainly, at what time do you watch shows? Surprisingly, most people seem to watch it live, although maybe 20% download it later, but that might be because they're not even in the UK. And what kind of devices do you watch game shows? Surprisingly, nearly everybody watches it still on a TV set with maybe a tablet as a second device. And then the interesting one, I can't quite work out in my head without sorting them, is as far as game shows is concerned, what UK channel is the best for game shows? And it seems to be mainly split between BBC One and BBC Two. There's a fairly healthy. No, actually, I'm going to have to do some adding up on this one because it's very tight between that and ITV. There's 2 mentions for Channel 4, 2 mentions for Challenge, and somebody has put honorary UK channels Pro 7 and KBS. And I imagine that person's name is Chris Dixon, but I may be wrong about that. So that's the results of the first poll. We have another poll coming up after this next section. If you are joining us late, this is the UKGameshows.com Bothers Bar poll of 2014 results. We're going through the vote for the best and worst game shows of the past year. Nick, how many votes did we get in total this year?
89.
And compared to the previous year, which was...
that was previous year, it was about that.
Yeah, a bit slightly less, but it was a healthy turnout.
Just one question before we move on. Luke asks, compare profile point of damage compared to shows that no one saw. Looking at Standby Man, for example. If you have questions, by the way, I've got all the stats here, so hashtag BBPOL, I'm about to answer them for you. Standby Man did very badly. It came 13th in the poll, so just outside the top 10.
Actually, I was going to ask as well. Draw It. Did I miss that, or did that appear low on the poll?
No, it appeared. It's 17th.
Oh, well, there you go. I guess that was unwatched because I didn't enjoy Draw It personally, but there you go.
Oh, I liked it. I thought it was good, healthy fun. It was drawing. It had a few drawbacks, pun intended, but I thought it was quite good.
Well, there you go.
Right. Okay. Well, let's move on to the Hall of Fame, which is for the best new show of 2000 that had its first broadcast during 2014. I shall flick over to Nick's camera to open the envelope.
I should just read out the illustrious list. This will be joining includes Deal or No Deal, Poker Face, Golden Balls, Duel, The Cube, £1 Million Drop, Secret Fortune, Breakaway, and 5 Minutes to a Fortune. So we should open the envelope, hold up the camera so you can see it. It's all very exciting. And here are the results. There's a joint 10th. Go through the lower bit of the list. Joint 10th, you have Reflex, The Singer Takes It All. 9, the guest list. 8, Draw It. And 7, the 21st question.
Okay.
Joint 5th, so we'll move on to that a bit.
Well, I'm glad that Draw It's on that list. I must say, I thought it was quite. It was light-hearted. It was only a half-hour show, wasn't it? Was that right, or was it 45 minutes?
I think it was a half-hour show.
Half-hour show.
I thought for what it was a lovely little piece of entertainment. So yeah, good on that.
Okay, so joint 5th, we have Win Your Wish List and 15 to 1. Now, 15 to 1 comes under the new rule that we skated this year because it never happened before, and we thought maybe it should do that. If you had a broadcast pilot the previous year and a new series the year after, because there might have been changes, if we give it a second chance. It did finish in the top 10 last year as well, in third, in fact. It's actually gone down 2 places since the pilot. When Your Wish List is interesting because it was only just sneaked onto the list. It only started just after Christmas, and during the voting period, there were 2 more episodes, and evidently it's done well enough that you voted for it.
Yes, I mean that might account for part of the situation, I suppose. So I say that actually a lot of we opened the voting after
On
the first
January 1st,
episode
yeah.
had been, but I suppose what you're saying is a lot of people may not have seen any episodes before they actually voted. Well, I'm slightly surprised by that. Nevertheless, I thought it was a good show when I first saw it, and now I've seen 4 episodes. I think it's actually a very good show. I like the mechanic. I like the game. I think the way they've laid out the screen is good, where you can see everybody and you can see the game happening, you see all the answers and everything. That's been thought through well. The production values in it are good. I find the set maybe a bit sterile, but on the other hand, it's a bit different. So I sort of, I can live with that. And as I was saying with Gift Wrapped, it didn't fall into a lot of the old tropes. It had offered us something a bit different, in that sometimes you could lose things, sometimes you could win things outright, sometimes you could just take it to the final and then win it, or then lose it then. I personally would maybe like the questions to be a touch harder. Certainly the first episode it felt a bit easy, but then I think there's been a few more stumpers on subsequent shows. But what I think the key thing I like about it is that it's one of the few shows that I've seen this year where the outcome kind of zigs and zags between win and loss. It seems to be quite unpredictable what's going to happen, and that's to be applauded. That it's a neat little game. I do wish it wouldn't take 7 minutes to get into the game. But then again, what would you take out? I mean, the videos they've got of the prizes are quite nice. The prizes themselves are very good, as they should be for Saturday Night BBC. And they've been quite smart in the way that they've added a sort of things that the BBC can only get type prizes. So if it's not just dancing lessons, it's dancing lessons plus a dancing lesson with the people from Strictly. There's a certain sort of Jet Set quality to it. When Jet Set had all those sort of cool little prizes, that was a good show for things like that. So maybe because it came so late in the year, that's why it's down so low. I think it may be my favourite show of the year, in terms of it. Neat mechanics. It's okay. It's only a Q&A show, I suppose, and it does the thing about picking categories, which I'm not that thrilled about. But other than that, I think it's done well.
And it was 15-1 was voted for by every one of its viewers. That's still never mind. At number 4, Ejector Seat.
Ah.
There you go, Alex. I told you that you wouldn't be the only one who liked this show.
So it's quite a polarizing show then, obviously.
Yeah. I still think it messed up its big USP. Not having surprise when they tip back, because that's when the laughter is, but you've removed it. I think it's a good game, but they've messed up the production of it, which I thought was quite sad.
I wonder quite why it had to be such a long set, because I would have just said, well, why don't you slow down the seats and have a shorter set? Because they went at such a, I mean, like when it went up to speed 3, they were moving at something like 2 meters a second or something. It was like really quite fast. It's like you only had time for 2 questions before you were out. It reminded me a bit of the sort of the brain drain from Brainstorm, if anyone remembers that. Well, I would have thought a more exciting game would be one where you can, yes, you do get dragged back, but occasionally you get dragged forward again, so that you're sort of always tipping on the edge, but then you might be able to rescue the situation. They've sort of done that with this button pressing thing, the emergency button. But that's a one-shot deal, and it's, as Nick says, it sort of takes some of the surprise out of the equation. So as as I was saying with Windy Wish List, that's the antithesis, really. That is not surprising, and I didn't particularly like the mechanic, if I'm really honest.
I quite enjoyed it. In response to you asking why the set's so long, I think if it was much shorter than the slower speeds, it wouldn't even look like they started to move. Almost like if it was, if we just imagine it was half as long, then imagine the slowest speed at half the speed. It would look at first like nothing's even happening, and I don't know. I'm probably talking rubbish as I usually do, but I can see where that decision might have come from. I think, yeah, it was a good show. I think Andy Peters certainly hosted it quite competently. It was a fun game, but as Nick said, the surprise moment was certainly diluted, to say the least.
Well, I thought it was annoying actually that if you didn't use there's no prize for not using your emergency stop throughout the game. I thought if you didn't use it in the main game, you should be able to use it in the end game. Just stop your seat if at any point if you start moving. I think that'd been quite a fun addition. And so it gives a bit more reward to being quite good at the main game as well. I think in lots of ways HC is almost there, but not quite there. But I admire it as a thing, if it's not quite as good a thing.
Easier as well. I think
yeah,
a little bit of pace.
Right. At number 3, Release for Hounds.
Hey!
Quite pleased with that.
I am unsurprised that's on here. As you said earlier, people who vote in this tend to be quite gamey people, and Release the Hound's a very gamey show, which also comes under our exemption rule for shows that had a pilot in 2013.
This was much improved from the pilot, which is sort of one of the reasons I thought it was worthwhile putting a rule in, as it turned out. The pilot was... all the ideas were there, but it wasn't scary enough or funny enough, it wasn't surprising enough. And they fixed a lot of the issues for the series, so I was quite pleased with that. Very pleased with that, actually.
It's a very different show, isn't it? It's very different to all these studio-based shows, because 1, it's not in a studio, 2, it's at night, and 3, the contestants are literally scared out of their wits.
It was probably the show I laughed most at over last year, especially with Diversity Trisha Special, which was very, very funny a lot of the time. It's not quite perfect, but if it started off down there as a pilot, it's up sort of there for the first series. Hopefully the second series will be up there somewhere, because I think it has a lot of potential. And I want there's nothing worse than a show that has potential doesn't fill it. Release the Hounds is now finally filling it, and hopefully by next year it'll be properly, really, really good. So, good luck to that.
It certainly fixed a lot of its problems. I do wonder if actually it went slightly too game showy with all these on-screen graphics and everything. It slightly took you out of the moment. And it almost seems like every episode is edited in a different way.
But it's, from what I've heard, most episodes are edited by different people, so that's not actually a surprise, to be honest.
Yes, but I mean, even though that is the case, it sounds like they have big debates about which shots should be in, which ones shouldn't. But it seems like it's a slight panic measure that people aren't understanding how the game's working, and I think there are more elegant ways of solving these problems than sticking a full screen 150 meters graphic across.
You were disappointed by that.
Well, you see, that's unusual for me, because normally I would be the sort of person that would want that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think this is the wrong show to do that sort of thing. And even if you did want to do that, I think there are more elegant ways of doing it, such as put the 150 meter sign, in creepy handwriting or whatever, next to the gate, a bit like a javelin throwing sort of sign, not a fake computer graphic that you've just stuck on afterwards. Anyway, it's getting there. I still think that they don't quite know what to do with a host, and it seems that all the reviewers say that Reggie is something of a spare wheel, and not really fitting in with the format.
I like Reggie. I'm going to stick with Nico. I think he does a good job for the audience they're trying to get. I think if the comments comes out with are funny. I think, obviously, the thing is, if it was on ITV, you can get away with someone a bit more in character, I think, because the age range is is welcome to that. But on ITV2, when you get into 18 to 30-year-olds, as soon as you start getting someone going verily, forsooth, everyone pisses off. So don't do that. You've got to get someone that people can buy into. And I think Reggie does a good job of that. His comments are funny. I laugh a lot at his asides, and also the fact that I've tweeted something, and 2 seconds later, Reggie will make exactly the same comment on telly. I think, okay, yep, fair enough.
Yeah, but bear in mind that Richard O'Brien, by Series 4, I think something like 40% of the Crystal Maze audience was under 18.
True.
So, kids can definitely cope with having a sub-main character.
Yeah, he was in character, but a lot of the time he wasn't really. He was. I think he played a general person, sort of a lay person, sort of quite well, I thought, throughout most of it. Anyway, that's for another conversation.
Would you agree with me that I wouldn't actually want to see a lot of Release the Hounds? Because I think there aren't that many ideas that I think they could use, although you could say that about 8 or 10 Texas Countdown. I would want to see it more as specials and smaller series than fully blown series. Would you agree?
I think yes. As long as they have ideas. Otherwise, also stop doing Needle in Haystack challenges. It's not good television. There are quite a few of those from last series. It was a massive shame. But it sounds like they've got plenty of ideas. As long as I can realise them properly, I'm happy to watch it. Because it was on every week, frankly. As long as it's still funny. For me, it's as much of a funny show as a scary show.
Well, I mean, I suppose it says something that UK game shows must be in fairly good health, given that you can have a game show which involves people spitting blood into a cup and the cheeky girls in a morgue.
Yeah, and Wagner.
Right. Let's move on.
Anyway, at number 2, and I disagree with this quite heavily, it's The Link.
Oh.
Again, it's that gamey audience, and it's a lot of people who want to vote Only Connect in the Hall of Fame but can't, so they'll vote the next best thing. That's possibly where those votes are coming from. I don't know.
It's not even a good game. It's a good concept. The central conceit is good, fine, but the format is rubbish. The judging was rubbish. I like Mark Williams though. Mark Williams is good, surprisingly actually, because he was quite eccentric. And,
Mark Williams is the one thing I would expect to turn people off of that show. When you're right, I mean, he's eccentric in a way that probably you and I would like, and a lot of people viewing at home might not.
But it turns out a lot of people gone for him quite well in the comments. So it gets 1 million. It does very well in its slot. In fact, it starts next on Monday, a slightly later slot, 3:00 against Tipping Point. So
good luck.
Yeah. I don't really understand why they've commissioned a show which involves the finding the connection between 4 clues that are released one at a time.
Who would watch that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's sort of come about because of the Linky board game. If you don't know, the Link is actually based on a board game which is just basically a set of cards that have 4 quiz questions on them, and then you have to answer the questions and find the link between them. Hang on, I'm going to put over to your camera, as Daniel will now demonstrate. There we are. Thank you. Yeah, it did retread an awful lot of ground that we'd done on early series of Only Connect, so I could understand why another channel might commission it, but why they would kind of stamp all over the toes of a show that is now on BBC Two, I didn't really understand. I understand that they are sorting out a lot of the problems with the judging and verification, stuff like that for Series 2, but I actually quite liked it for what it was. I just didn't really understand why you would commission 2 shows that are so similar. Then again, I find that that Nick Knowles lottery show, that his name I can never quite remember. Who Dares Wins? Was all a yet another list show. Whereas, what other list shows has there been recently?
Pointless.
Yeah, I mean that sort of thing. Yeah, I mean like those are 2 shows that kind of trod on each other's toes. I suppose they can coexist, but there must be other question formats out there that we can do.
I've noticed that actually, just as an aside. I was going to a local bookshop, how retro I know, and there are a load of quiz books out now, which are basically just that, just lists of things to people. Here are 7 dwarves. Can you name them? That's basically the entirety of these books.
Yep.
This appears to have become a thing all of a sudden, which I hadn't noticed before. So whether that's down to lists, I don't, just because I don't know. Anyway, shall we move on to the top show?
I'm struggling to think what it could be.
2014.
I'm going to have to look at the list of what shows have been.
I'm looking at the list, and I'm frankly surprised that Sam and Mark's Sports Showdown and Sam and Mark's Geordie Challenge didn't take 1 and 2. How could this travesty occur?
No. It's quite obvious what the best show is. Now I've seen the list. Yes, of course.
It is solid 7 out of 10 quizzer, 2 tribes.
Well,
and it's not close to either. It got more than 2.5 times the votes of the link, so not close at all. It's thrashed everyone basically.
I do have to wonder how many of those are Richard Osman's Twitter follower votes. But then you think most of those people voted for pointless, so I don't know.
Yeah, we'll talk about this later. It's fair to say that certainly you got the vote out, but pretty much everyone gave it a vote. Most people who voted in the poll gave 2 tribes at least a vote, so you can't really say fairer than that, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I think it's fair enough. I liked it. It's a good idea. It's sort of similar to an idea I had some years ago, but I had sort of games instead of questions. So I thought it would work. This one's a much smaller scale thing than I was planning, which is sort of originally 100 people split up into different ways. I don't quite understand why they changed the end game for this next series, but I thought the end game was sort of okay. Yeah, I mean, I have to say, there's very few people that could have hosted a show like that, because you've got to be a raconteur, witty person bouncing off people, as well as someone who knows their stuff as far as quizzing is concerned. And I understand that this format was around for a little while, and no one really bit until Richard Osman became attached to it, and then it became a natural fit. And I think it's very much to his credit that it's become a success. I think there's very few other people I can think of who could pull that sort of show off.
I was very honoured to be a question writer on the show, and it was a wonderful experience, a fantastic experience. And Richard was genuinely worried that because it was his first main presenting gig away from Alexander and Pointless, that he wouldn't be as good. And it's safe to say that he's more than coped on his own, because I know that was one of his worries. What if he wasn't as good? But no, he's been utterly fantastic. And for such a simple show, it's actually a slightly surprisingly complex behind the scenes, because when they were casting the show, they had to make sure that the 7 people who they cast had answered enough of the 200 questions on the questionnaire, or however many it was, such that that for any given 6 of them, any given 5 of them, and any given 4 of them could be split up in the way that they wanted to, with some horrendously complex spreadsheet or something. I can't imagine. There's actually surprisingly complicated behind the scenes.
There you go. Yep. I've got nothing else to add. Osman hosted more than capably. Snappy half-hour show, as we discussed earlier. And it just works. It works in its time slot as well. That sort of post Pointless tea time sort of show. The format fits it, and the presentation and production values and so on just really fit it where it is. So yeah, it's the standout show of the year, certainly.
I'm pleased. I stuck with it longer than I was expecting after watching an episode live. Because I'm not a very quizzy sort of person, really, but I did think it was funny. I did think it was entertaining. Also thought it would have rated a bit better, if I'm honest. But it is what it is. And it's getting another series. So yeah, congratulations.
Right, jolly good. So we have a second poll to open, which asks you a few more things about your opinions on the world of game shows, specifically UK game shows. So if you want to go to bit.ly/ that's number one, small y, letter L, little r, capital R, small g, and look forward to receiving your votes for that. Just a reminder for any latecomers, we're going through the poll of 2014 results that readers of UKGameshows.com and Bothers Bar sent in to us, and they've all been compiled by the Adjudicator General, Nick Gates. And we're going through them right now. So there's another quick reminder of the poll, bit.ly/1ylrrgg. And look forward to seeing that. I'll also keep your comments and questions coming in and reaction to hashtag BB poll. Have we got any more reaction for the best show of the year?
We've got plenty of reaction for the best show of the year results. Mark Lebet has tweeted in. Hello, Mark. Obviously of the chase. He says, glad 15-1 was only 5th. He thought it was a pale shadow of the original and far too drawn out. We've got, let's have a look. Luke Watches says, a few tweaks in Ejector Seat could have gone from good to great, the element of surprise being chief among them, pretty much agreeing with us there. We've got Brecky saying Release the Hounds was fab. How it pans out will be interesting. Not sure how crucial the not knowing the show you're on gimmick is. Was that actually a thing, or was that something that I made up, that contestants who applied for it weren't aware they were actually going on to Release the Hounds?
No, that's apparently a fact.
Okay, then. What else have we got? Sam Hodgkin saying, slightly surprised at the link being number 2 in the Hall of Fame. It had its flaws and then some, but it was enjoyable to an extent. Yeah, pretty much everyone's agreeing with us that Two Tribes was the correct choice for the number 1 show of the year.
Well, the better do, because it's the same group of people, so Nick must have rigged it if it wasn't. So.
This is true, yep.
I'm just putting, if you're following my Twitter, I'll put that poll list up. I made it wrong, so I've done it again. So hopefully you vote in our poll.
Then Dan's just done exactly the same thing. He's had to post it twice.
The problem is, I've got an iPad. I'm looking down on camera. I've got an iPad in front of me with tweets on it. I'm trying to type on that, and R and 4, it turns out you have to press the button first, or you get the other one. So
Yes. Yeah.
that'll explain it.
Right, let's move on then to our third and final section today, which is the Golden Five. Now, this is a bit different to the other categories. This is for any UK game show that's had at least one new episode broadcast at some point during the 2014 calendar year. And so, therefore, it's open to new and existing shows. So take it away. We'll just...
Okay. This one's slightly interesting. If you go back through the records, and all online, all on UK game shows, you can see shows have trajectories. They go up, they sort of tail off a little bit. Winners of this award for the last, it wasn't one in 2005, for the last 9 years. Deal or No Deal, Deal or No Deal, Only Connect, The Cube / Only Connect, Only Connect, Only Connect, then Pointless and Pointless. So let's open the envelope and see what lies within. The start of one that's just outside the Golden Five. So these came 6 to 10. In 10th place, The Cube. In 9th place, Deal or No Deal. In 8th place, Countdown. In 7th place, Tipping Point. And in 6th place, University Challenge.
Ooh, it's good to see Countdown in.
Countdown made top 5 last year, and Tipping Point, it might be worth remembering, came 2nd in the Hall of Shame the year and I'm pleased today I was right about that all the time. It's a good show, and it's starting to do well. So, good. So, number 5 in the Golden Five, The Great British Bake Off.
Oh.
And it's very unusual for a reality skills show to make it with Golden Five. The Apprentice has made it in the past, but British Bake Off's been around, bubbling under for a couple of years now, and since it moved to BBC One, it's got enough votes to actually make the top 5.
Freakgate must have helped it.
Yeah, I was going to say it's interesting that what amounts to a cookery show is the 5th in the Golden Five, considering that 9 and 10 in the Hall of Shame were was it joint ninth in the Hall of Shame? I think were both cookery shows. The Taste and
the Taste. Yeah.
So I was going to say at the time that people don't like their cookery shows, but obviously I would be wrong about that. Personally, I'm not a Bake Off fan, but I can see the appeal. So.
I watch it. I like it. The way that they say that the success of it was based upon the fact that they haven't shied away from the process of how the cakes are made. They said that actually people quite like understanding from start to finish how these things are done. So you're sort of learning as you go, as well as all of the usual stuff about the characters, whatever. And Mel and Sue are always very watchable. They I don't know quite why they work on this show, if I'm honest. I would have thought they might be slightly too jaunty, but they work very well. I suppose it's just because they've got lots of puns about baps and eclairs or whatever. It's if any TV execs knew why Bake Off was so successful, they would be immediately multi-millionaires. But we're not. It's very nicely made, but no one really knows why it's chimed with the public. I suppose some people would say it's reminiscent of a Britain that is of the past, like the kind of 1950s make do and mend style of thrift, and I suppose you could say that is appropriate for the economic situation that we're in.
At the same time, though, I mean, other shows such as I mean, it's certainly one thing that isn't the sole factor of its success is the title "The Great British." Since about 15 million shows have come out called "The Great British something else," and they've not done nearly as well. And the Great British Sewing Bee comes immediately to mind as something that is also very make, do, and mend. Starts with the Great British, and yet, to my knowledge, hasn't been nearly as successful as Bake Off. So. They may be factors in its success, but certainly not the entire reason. As you say, nobody knows, and I don't think it's knowable.
I think Private Eye listed in one of its issues that the BBC in the last 5 years had commissioned something like 89 different shows with the word Britain or British in its title.
I was quite disappointed that a Big Allotment Challenge was not called the Great British Rake Off, to be honest. Oh, come on, that was good. Right,
I didn't even say
hashtag BB poll. Sorry. Sorry.
Right, number 4.
Number 4, Two Tribes. The top of the Hall of Fame tends to make the top 5. They tend to drop out of next year. So interesting to see if Two Tribes are still in the top 5 next year. Okay, so it will be legible. And then the top 3, and you probably can know what they're going to be, but in what order, listeners? In number 3, Mark Labette, you can be very happy. It's The Chase.
Yay!
It's funny enough, I've just refreshed Twitter, and Mark's actually said, hoping The Chase will stay at number 3 in the Golden Five. So
there you go.
There you go.
Always wish.
The Chase had an interesting year. That is not actually been very interesting. It's actually had no changes to it or anything. Well, it launched for US end of 2013, didn't it? So
yep.
It's been solid. It's just solid. That's all it is. At number 2, Only Connect.
I'm remain unsurprised by this position for Only Connect, and I think we all know what number 1 is. So let's get on with it.
And at number 1, what could it be?
It's obviously Ultimate Dealer, the surprise breakout hit from July.
And at number 1, it's Pointless.
Hey.
Well done, Richard Osman and Alexander Armstrong and the team.
Double well done, Richard Osman, for having 2 shows in the Golden Five this year.
I know, he's had a bit of a good year, isn't he?
How much do you think the celebrity edition of Pointless will have helped Pointless in that?
Here's the funny thing about pointless. I was writing, because obviously when we finish a broadcast, the whole report's going up on UKGameshows.com. So I looked at last year's write-up for it. I said, what a good year it's had. Celebrity Shows are basically holding up Saturday nights. It's getting massive viewing figures. And come this year, it's still getting. It's actually exactly the same story it was last year. It's still doing really well. It's just posted its best daytime figures since it started, and that's 5 years on. That's unheard of. That's amazing. It's actually the biggest show on Saturday nights. Some Saturday nights, and it won a Rose D'Or. So really, it's doing very well in the UK. Elsewhere, not quite so good, but certainly in the UK, it's just a force of nature.
Well, elsewhere they did add silly sound effects in at least one territory. I do remember that particular one.
I should have to find that out.
What sort of gap was there between first and second?
Actually, not. It was less than 10 votes.
Right. Okay.
So it was. I think it was. I looked up the shares. Both shares and Pointless Amateurs have gone up as a percentage of the votes. I think the gap is about the same. So it's not like last year. It's not like year before last. It was like one vote in it. It was about 10 votes, about less than 10 votes, but more than that. The thing is, between the top three, there's a massive leap to four and five. So
that's unsurprising.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is, obviously, Rich Osborne got his vote out. He's got what, 250,000 justifiers or whatever, and he's managed to get like 10 extra votes out of it. That was quite good. But pretty much everyone who voted gave Pointless a vote. So what? It's just, if it's on all the lists, you can't complain really. A lot of people did vote for Pointless and nothing else. Like, people voting for Pointless in the Hall of Fame, it would have finished about 12th if only the votes for that was counted. So yeah, I'd like to disagree with really. It's just a force of nature.
Yeah.
How long will it last?
How long was Deal or No Deal pretty much a force of nature? I mean, I know it only topped the Golden Five for 2 or 3 years, but I think that's because Only Connect came along after that and obviously grabbed the sort of gamey type people's attention. But in terms of ratings and viewing figures, Deal or No Deal had a good at least 5 or 6 years before it started to decline.
If you say that Deal or No Deal was getting 4 or 5 million at one point. It wasn't getting that 5 years on. Absolutely not. I was in two for about 5 years on, which is still pretty respectable for Channel 4. But obviously these days it gets hard, like barely 600,000. It won the first 2 years. It won the first 2 years we did the Golden Five as a poll. And I think it won Best New Show in 2005 as well. But by 2008, its star was waning just a little bit. It started in 2005. It's 10 years old this year, of course. It's the 10th anniversary year for Deal or No Deal this year.
I do find it slightly baffling that Pointless, a show which ran out of questions about 3 years ago, is still performing so brilliantly.
Let's go through some of the comments on Twitter. Let's have a look here. Luke Watches has said the cardinal rule of this sort of show, he's talking about Bake Off here, take something that sounds easy and make people understand why it's hard. Dancing, baking, most of the generation game, haircuts, etc.
Yep.
So yeah, that's a good point. What else have we got? Mark Lebet says Pointless Celebrities helps massively in his opinion.
Oh, I think we might have a bit of an exclusive if you head to the top of the.
Yeah, I did see that as well. Mark Lebet also says that Pointless is heading to the USA this year, so very good luck to it.
Wow.
Yeah. Scott Rux says, genuinely, I normally hate celebrity versions of game shows, but Pointless and 8 out of 10 Catster's Countdown seem to be an exception. And Gordon Donaldson says, absolutely loves Two Tribes, so glad it's won Best Show in the BB poll. Richard Osman is a far better solo host than we expected.
Oh, I always knew it was in him.
Right, we can go through the results for the poll that you've been sending in while we've been having this podcast. Thank you for the 32 responses that we've had. So the first question we asked you, which was, what's your favourite genre of game show? And surprisingly, it's quite split actually. We have maybe 25% of people saying academic quizzes, 25 people saying sort of more everyday family quizzes, 25% of people saying comedy panel games, and then there's a ragbag of odds and sods for things like action adventure shows and reality shows and puzzly shows. So that gives you a profile of what sort of people were voting in this poll. There's another question, which was, what format from abroad would you like to see brought into this country in the coming year?
I wonder.
I know
wonder, yeah.
there's a fair range here, actually.
Okay, go on.
yeah.
There's about 3 votes for Avanti and Altro.
That would be massive if it was done correctly by the right for it.
1 vote for De Slimster, which
Yes.
is the correct answer.
Yes.
A vote for Darrow, or Exit as it's known.
Yes.
We've got
Not an American one.
House Rules. Is that what? Is that Big Brother? What's that?
I don't know, actually. I'll have to look this up after the...
Okay. All right. $1 Million Mind Game. Someone said. Raid the Cage. Yeah, I've seen that. A 3 for Shroud and Rob. 1 for Takeshi's Castle, which they're getting. No, but they're getting their wish for Takeshi's Castle because it's ITV are making that, aren't they?
Oh,
no,
no,
this
that's
is,
Ninja Warrior.
So I
yeah.
say that's
Go on, Dan.
It's Sasuke or Ninja Warrior that's coming. So it's slightly
Oh, sorry. Yes. Okay. Beg your pardon.
I was going to say they already got their wish for Shrugged and Rav because we did have Beat the Star. So if you can find archives of that, go watch them, and you'll see what happened when we tried.
Perhaps I want Stefan Raab to come over here and be the contestant every week. Who would do it as well? Right fee.
There's 6 votes for the Genius, and
Yes.
there's 7 votes for the Mole. So
Ooh.
still a lot of love for the Mole, and I know
Yes.
that there are TV executives around that would like to bring it back if only
Yeah.
viewers would give it a try, I suppose. So it's sort of up to us, really, to say that there's demand for it. How should game shows improve in 2015? I gave you a list of possibilities, but you could also add in your own suggestions. Let's see, that's a third of people said that we should adapt more successful formats from abroad. So maybe that's people saying that we should bring the Genius and the Mole and give them a go. Some people saying that we're relying too much on general knowledge Q&A shows. I think that's a valid point. We had 5 votes for fewer remakes of old shows. I think certain channels are
Mhm.
a bit guilty of that. 4 people said more interactivity, and 5 people said reducing running time back to 30 minutes. Interactivity is an interesting one because that kind of relies on the show being live on the whole. I mean, not always, but on the whole it does. And the UK already does more live television than practically most other major TV country. I mean, America's all very flash and got huge budgets for their shows, but the amount of stuff that they do live is actually very low.
Well, that makes sense because America's so spread out. If you were to do something live, it would only really work in, like maybe half of your viewership. I'm thinking East Coast, West Coast.
Yes,
So-
well, that's the problem that the not the Voice, the Rising Star had, that they had to effectively run the viewer vote twice, one for each coast. So, yeah, that's always going to be a problem, which China neatly sidesteps by having one time vote. So basically, what we're saying is the Americans need to be more like China. And then we had, which might please Lewis if he hasn't seen this yet, we had a little fun vote for outside of the main shows, which game show was the most. Well, it was like the hidden gem of the year, if you like, the most underrated. Well, now, this will please some people because quite by far, Draw It is the winner. Virtually everybody has said that they quite like Draw It. It's outside of the main shows that we've already discussed. A bit of love for 24 Hours to Go Broke. Quite a lot of people liking The Lie.
Yes, I like Malay. Didn't get many votes, probably because it was actually on in England. It was on in Scotland and Ireland, and there's a Welsh version coming this year. And I still think it's a good utility show. But it's very difficult to watch at the moment, unfortunately.
A bit of love for Timeline, the Brian Connolly show on
yes, of
Challenge.
Got votes.
A bit for Who's Doing the Dishes
Votes.
and Ludus.
Mhm.
But that was the main one. So your main winner there is Draw It by quite some way.
There you go. I'm wrong as usual. No surprise.
Yeah.
And so I believe that is it. So I'll ask that question to our panelists, actually. What would you like to see happen in 2015?
I'm quite excited that hopefully Glenn Hugel's company is going to start bearing some fruit, because I think he's probably one of the most interesting people in the genre. So fingers crossed, it won't be rubbish, because it'll be very disappointing if it is, frankly.
So explain what he set up a company
Yes,
with...
he Possessed TV. If you don't know who he is, he was the host of The Mole, and he produced Deal or No Deal when it started, and he was actually one of the people behind Two Triumphs as well. So certainly one of the most interesting people in the genre. I want him to buy up the Genius, because I think he's one of the few producers that'll get it. So yeah, hopefully this year something from him would be good.
He's launched a company in partnership with ITV Studios called Possessed.
Yep.
Possessed TV, its name is. So that'd be the name to look out for there. What about you, Dan?
Well, I think 2014 saw loads of new shows, but none of them were particularly good. What I want to see is the same number again, please. I think lots of things were tried, none of them particularly worked. If someone wants to try The Mole again, hello, I'm happy to help work on the show. Thank you very much. Yes, I have lots of ideas for challenges. Thank you. always worth a shout out. And if you want me to host a game show, also I'm here. Warning, I tell puns. But I just want people to keep on trying, because I think people didn't hit the button in 2014, but they tried.
All right, and Lewis?
This is a difficult question, because again, I'm always wrong. So I'm going to go with what people said. Bring in the Genius. Glenn Hugel, please do the Genius, because I agree with Nick. You'd probably be one of the only people who would actually get it. And aside from the Genius, I think maybe agreeing with what Dan said, more shows, but can we please have some half-hour shows instead of drawing things out? I know that that's not your fault, production companies. I know that that's the channels asking for hour-long shows. I think it is anyway. I know someone's asking for hour-long shows that isn't like the creative team, certainly, but can we please have, if a show deserves a half-hour slot, please don't stretch it out to an hour. That's my request for the year ahead. It's unlikely to become fulfilled, but that's my request.
I think I would agree with the person in the poll that said that we're relying too much on Q&A stuff. I think that particularly when it comes to younger people are not really taught in the same way that I was taught. I mean, I'm far from the age where people had years of battles drilled into them, but even so, the world of education is very different these days. I mean, like, kids at the age of 5 are taught how to code, for instance. You know, that's true. That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
So I think that modern education is much more about skills and less about factual recall. And I think there will become something of a tipping point, where sort of to ask people in their 20s when was the Battle of Hastings, it starts to become not that relevant, because what they actually know is how to set up their own wiki that will automatically, find all of the battles in the world and put them in date order for you. They're gonna have a completely different skill set. There will always be quizzes, and all people will always enjoy them, but I do think that we might have to start thinking of other ways in which we could test people that isn't sort of going back to the 1930s. While Q&A stuff is good for joining in with interactively shouting answers at the screen, there are other ways of interacting with the TV shows, even if they're not live, as things like Crystal Maze proved. And even things like The Apprentice, everybody is instantly a business expert when they watch The Apprentice, because they go, oh, no, what he should have done is he should have asked for twice as much and then come down. And that's why it's so brilliantly edited. And I think that would be my wish. I think I would like more shows to do more different types of tasks, more physical games, more outward bound challenges, less Q&A stuff.
Okay then. On that point, and actually you mentioned the Crystal Maze, but on that point, I'm going to make an additional request. Does everyone remember that one game from Britain's Brightest, which was the Puzzle Room? Can we make that into a show, please?
It's almost certainly going to happen at some point. It's Exit. Our friend Chris, we talked about earlier, runs a blog about exit games, and I'm sure at some point someone will bite a bullet and attempt to do a format based around the concept. It must happen eventually, surely.
Maybe someone already is. And on that bombshell, we'll move on. So, thank you to my commentators, Daniel Peake.
Thank you.
Lewis Murphy.
Thank you very much.
Big thanks to Nick Gates.
Thank you very much
for all your hard work. Now, Nick, you tell us what's going to happen next.
Okay. So this broadcast is finishing momentarily. I have a report. It's written up. It will be going up on UKGameshows.com in about 20 minutes' time. I need to format it a little bit first to make sure it all works okay. I still want to put it up before the broadcast because there are no results. After that's been done, the percentages will be on Bothers's Bar. It'll be linked to. Go to bothersbar.uk. It'll also be linked to the front of UKGameshows.com. I'll be propagating it on Twitter. Follow me, Bothers's Bar. All the links will be there. So by 11 o'clock, let's say, all the information from this year's poll should be up and running for you to peruse. Your comments are involved in that report, and a lot of them are very funny and interesting. So look out for that very, very soon.
And any information that we've additionally garnered through your kind responses through the couple of polls that we've run through this podcast will maybe also be added in if I get a chance to do that for Nick. So thanks everyone for listening. We've had about 40 viewers, so obviously this has been a success, and hopefully we'll do it again next year. Sorry you couldn't see me in picture. I had a webcam problem, and in any case I had to share my screen for the graphics, so I will try and get that sorted out. I have a year to do so. Nevertheless, keep your eyes peeled. These are the various web addresses. Oh no, that's the wrong one. These are the various. It was all going so well. These are the various web addresses that you'll need to see the data from the poll and the percentages and any extra information. And there's Lewis's podcast whenever he gets round to doing it, maybe by the next time that Halley's Comet appears. So from Dan, Lewis, Nick and myself, thanks very much indeed for watching. Keep your eyes peeled on the website, and keep your comments going on the hashtag BB poll. And thanks very much indeed for taking the time to listen to us and to send in your comments, and please remember to do so again next year. So from us all, thanks for listening and good evening.
Bye.